Hey everyone, and welcome. When you hear the name Charles Dickens, you probably picture these massive, sprawling novels, just packed with characters and twisting subplots. But today, we're diving into one of his most unusual works, Hard Times. It's short, it's sharp, and it is incredibly powerful. And in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly what makes this novel tick. Okay, so let's get right to the heart of it with the big question. If you've ever read David Copperfield or Bleak House, picking up Hard Times feels, well, totally different. It's like a laser beam compared to a floodlight. So how did he pull off this incredible focus? And maybe more importantly, why? So on one hand, you've got the Dickens we all think we know, these sprawling epics full of detours and a million characters. But then you've got Hard Times, and it's a whole different animal. It's short, it's laser-focused on just one story, and it uses this tiny cast of characters. And this wasn't an accident. It was a really deliberate and powerful artistic choice. And hey, it's not just us saying this. The famous literary critic F.R. Leavis absolutely nailed it when he called the novel Dickens's most compact and focused work. This critical consensus really sets the stage for our whole investigation. What is it that makes this book so uniquely unified? So where does all this focus come from? Well, it all starts with the novel's bones, its structure. It's like a blueprint for a perfectly tuned machine. You can see Dickens actively fighting his usual instincts here. He locks us into a single setting, the industrial hub of Coketown. The entire story really centers on just two families and one worker's struggle. There are no side quests, no detours, which keeps our attention fixed on the novel's central message. And the structure itself tells the story. Dickens uses this amazing metaphor of a harvest. Book 1 is called Sowing, and it's where an idea is planted. Book 2, Reaping, shows the terrible consequences of that idea. And finally, Book 3, Garnering, is where the final results are collected. It creates this powerful and almost inescapable cause and effect narrative. All right, so what's the central idea being sown in the first place? Well, it's the thematic heart of the whole book, a massive battle between two ways of seeing the world, fact versus fancy. The philosophy that Dickens is really taking aim at here is known as utilitarianism. Now, the way it's presented in the novel, it's this belief that the only things that have any value are things that are fact-based and useful. Imagination, art, compassion, wonder, all that stuff is seen as just useless clutter. Dickens is setting up a major ideological showdown. And he brings this whole conflict to life perfectly in two key characters. On one side, you have Thomas Gradgrind, a man who is obsessed with facts and raises his kids to suppress every single emotion. And on the other, you have Sissy Jupe, the girl from the circus who represents everything he hates: imagination, empathy, and feeling. It's their clash that really drives the entire moral argument of the book. So what's the big takeaway here? Dickens's crucial point is this: a life, or an entire society, built only on data and logic, with no room for the heart, is basically doomed. It creates people who are broken and unhappy, just like we see with Gradgrind's own kids, Louisa and Tom. He's saying a balance is absolutely essential for a healthy human life. Now, this battle of ideas isn't just happening in homes and in classrooms. No, it's literally built into the bricks and mortar of the city. Coketown isn't just a backdrop. It's the terrifying result of a society that has chosen fact at a terrible human cost. Coketown itself practically becomes a character in the novel. It's a place of endless, monotonous machinery and just soulless, repetitive work. Dickens uses it to paint this really bleak picture of the Industrial Revolution, highlighting the brutal conditions and the massive gap between the wealthy factory owners and the exploited workers. And to make sure this critique hits home and feels real, Dickens gives us Stephen Blackpool. He's this honest, hardworking man who is just completely crushed by the system. He gets rejected by his fellow workers and exploited by his boss. His story puts a real human face on all these big, abstract problems of industrial capitalism, and it makes the novel's social critique so personal and unforgettable. Okay, so we've got a tight structure, a clear theme, and this powerful social critique. But the real genius of the novel is how these parts don't just sit next to each other, they lock together, working like a single, unified machine. This is the secret to its power. I mean, there was absolutely zero wasted space in this novel.
Every single element, every character, every conversation, every description is designed to reinforce that central argument against a world without compassion and imagination. It's just a masterclass in artistic discipline.
Just look at how it all connects. Gradgrind School, it shows the failure of a fact-only education. Louise's unhappy marriage, that's the human cost of ignoring emotion. The setting of Coketown itself shows the soullessness of industrialism. And Stephen's plight is all about the exploitation of the working class. Every piece serves the main argument.
And all of this brings us to the verdict, the very thing that makes Hard Times feel so different from Dickens's other novels. Its shortness, its intense focus, is precisely what makes it one of his most powerful and effective critiques of society. It delivers its message with the force of a hammer blow.
So, what's the bottom line here? The novel's genius is in its clarity and its brevity. It makes a direct, powerful argument without getting lost in any subplots. And because every single element stars that main message, its warning against boiling human beings down to just numbers and data feels more relevant today than ever. And that really leaves us with one final thought, doesn't it? Over 150 years after Dickens wrote Hard Times, we are living in a world completely driven by data, algorithms, and AI. So it's really worth asking ourselves, in this age of facts on a scale Dickens couldn't have even imagined, what is the value of fancy, of imagination, empathy, and all those unquantifiable things that make us human?